Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you this evening?
Good. I'm here. I missed last week. I didn't even realize it till it was Friday, and I was like, man. So I'm setting alarms. My kids help me be so distracted I lose track of the days of the week. So
And who is this?
Kimberly.
Okay, Kimberly. It's not coming in under your name. You're using somebody's computer or something?
Oh, no, my nephew changed the name because he had a group therapy session
Okay,
just before this.
that's fine. As long as I know it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This sound system makes it real hard for my bad ears to recognize even the voices that I'm hearing. It really distorts it badly.
I think I sound different on computer anyways.
Oh, yes, that happens, but as I said, I can't get this to divert from the TV, and I don't have control over the sound in the TV, and it comes through real distorted. When I use a different format, I don't have any trouble running the sound to any speaker I want to, but it won't do it under this system for some reason. Now, I haven't found out the clue for that yet. Okay, give a couple more minutes here for somebody else to show up.
Where are we going to start?
We're going to start with these two paragraphs and one that I didn't give you. I sent everybody this. This is the material out of a book that does consider the Jainism. Okay, there's Jonathan.
Yeah, it's nothing but Zoom up there.
Yes. Let me see, let's get this out of the way. Oh, this already started sharing for some reason. That's why we were messed up. Okay. I've sent three different documents for both Jains and the Sikhs for tonight that we'll use if my system won't keep reshuffling them so I can see them. And it's shuffled them again. Okay. We want to start with this one. Mahavira. And you don't have this. You have his name. The history of the Jains is obscured because there wasn't a lot of records about its origin until after the fact. And it didn't have a singular personage like Muhammad for Islam to tie into. As it emerged with the conviction of this individual who becomes known as Mahavira, a teacher of this system, of this viewpoint. But his presentation is that he's the last of 23 predecessors who have been privileged, given the responsibility of knowing truth, insight, understanding, and then passing it on to followers. And these 24 gurus, teachers, become known as the Tirthankaras, the cross builders. One other translation has them the ford makers. Ideal individuals who have been given this kind of information. This 23rd person, the 24th person emerges sometime in the 6th century before Jesus. And the reason I put this up is so that you can make some connection here. The 6th century is when Buddha emerges, Confucius and Lao Tzu, Taoism, emerge in China, and you have the first of the major prophets in English Christian tradition, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah. And you'll notice here the work of Isaiah is split in a traditional scholarly form today, where large chunk, Isaiah 40 to 66, because it so thoroughly and even in some detail speaks to the condition of the Israelites in exile in the 6th century. They don't feel they can retain the traditional view that this was written by the prophet Isaiah, who lived a century before. And so here you have this anonymous author or authors of Isaiah 40 through 66. And of course, in the latter part of this 6th century, You have the emergence of Ezra and Nehemiah, whom scholars attribute, especially Ezra, with much of the development of the Torah in terms of its final form. So in this century, you have a massive series of massive developments in what are currently insignificant religions of the world. Jain emerges, and I think I'm going to switch here to the form that I handed out and the one that I sent you that should have, okay, everybody's here. Put this one down and get the other one up. Should say Jane 22, I think.
The page,
Yes.
it says Jane, Religion of India, page 1 of 2.
Yeah.
1 of 3.
1 of 3, but I think on my form, now where did it go? Seeks, change, and here it is. It emerges in India, which is full-fledged Hinduism of the 6th century before Jesus, and is dealing with the issues that brought about Buddha's attempt to reform or find an alternative way, because it didn't seem to be satisfying, at least to him. Jain emerges with this 24th individual attributed in much the same kind of life as Buddha has. He's born into the warrior caste, wealthy, and the story is that when his father dies and he can see that the family business is being well taken care of by his brother, his older brother, he abandons family like Buddha did and goes off into extreme asceticism. Unlike Buddha, who eventually determines that asceticism by itself is not the major way to discover the truth, and therefore for him, asceticism is simply a means to an end. In Jainism, asceticism becomes almost an end. And the extremely committed Jain monk not only deprives himself of all kinds of connections, relationships, food, he deprives himself even of his clothing, and he becomes a nude monk. Like Buddha, the Jains develop this extreme, disciplined, ascetic approach, less contemplative, meditative, certainly in the disciplined way that Buddha does it. But because that's the ideal, and for them particularly, the only successful way to escape this transmigration, this constant reincarnation. They have to develop a lay system that's less demanding, and as a result, of course, more religious. The Jains operate with a thoroughgoing dualism, in which for them the soul, which in Hinduism, remember, was the Atman, this spiritual entity, for the Jains is to some degree probably even less personal necessarily than it is in Hinduism. It's a spiritual force that's now stuck with a body, but the body has, as a material thing, has very little meaningful help. It's the result of all of these constraints that are placed upon the soul, or these wrong desires that are placed upon the soul. And so there is this need to break that control. Unlike Buddha, they retain far more strongly the Hindu idea of karma, where you really are stuck with the, quote, consequence of your previous lives, and therefore you are even worse off than Buddha believed you were. And so breaking out of this, breaking away from this, means that you have to go to these extreme measures to break away, for the soul to break away from this constrainment of the body. Hence their extreme asceticism. Here you see this extreme, let me enlarge this. This extreme dualism for them. Well, the soul, which is conscious, which is life, living, which exists in all living things and is totally absent in all material things, which is different from a lot of spiritism that sees even things inhabited by spirits. Matter for them lacks all characteristics of this consciousness. And here you see their attempt to break out of that. in their organized development, they clarify these 4 stages of perception or of knowing, both the initial simple observation, the recognition of it, which is a conscious, decided thing, the continued development of this, a determination, and then this realized understanding, which here they translate as a perception, which is simply a part of the contemplation, meditation that obviously has to take a part in this, because you're just like in Hinduism and Buddhism, you're trying to escape the way you think because you're in this body and in this material world. And you've got to get back to the pure spirit in order to arrive at the truth. And for many of the Jains, like some of the Hindus, this spirit as some overarching presence or reality doesn't even have to be personal. And so there isn't a God that you can somehow connect to, let alone one who could reveal to you some truth, in spite of the fact, you see, their tradition is built on the fact that there had been these knowing persons, but they don't develop the clear view of or depend on the clear view of revelation, like the Vedics. Original Hinduism, you see, believed that the Vedic documents were in fact the revelation of the gods, or the God. When this stuff gets written down, then they have their own written material. And in it, you see this similar development of Buddhism lying at the base. You have to have the right understanding, the right faith, the right emotional, psychic character, that then you can use in order to increasingly gain truth of the spirit, in order to combat, release yourself from the influences and the controls that are the result of your being in this material body and in this material world. Any particular questions somebody has? For us, it looks like just extreme Hinduism, except of course, as they develop these variants of the variants in their worldview, and come up with different terminology and that kind of thing. was it here? One of the pieces that I think I sent you talked about their aversion to the material, to the matter, and compared it to the same kind of thing that you find in all the other faiths that we've looked at, with the exception maybe of Judaism, even Christianity. Of the groups that we've looked at so far, Jains are much, much smaller. The other group we're going to look at this evening, the Sikhs, are much larger group. They come into existence almost a full millennium later. These are pre-Christian. Let me bring that up and we can look at it. And I gave you a couple of different things on the Sikhs as well.
I'll do the James.
Yes, for right now. Let's see, I think this is the one I gave you all. And they've got, you got Sikh at a glance. Okay, let's use it then. If I can find it again, here we go. Okay.
Mr. Platt,
Yes.
just to confirm, we didn't have a chapter in the book on Jainism?
No, there's nothing in the book about them. There was a little bit about the Sikhs in Hinduism, but nothing about the Jains.
Okay.
They were mentioned, they were just briefly mentioned in the, I think he mentioned them briefly in the early history when he was talking about Buddhism, and he mentioned the fact that this reform effort, which I got sidetracked from, the Jains are reacting like Buddha against the priestly Brahmins of the day, who control very narrowly and very rigidly Hinduism, which was still fundamentally ritualistic, sacrifice oriented, that the priests control. And like Buddha, they also reacted against the severe caste system that the Brahmin priesthood had fixed so firmly in Hinduism of the day. The Sikhism doesn't begin to arise until 1,000 years later. In 1699, you get the formalization, but like the Jains, this movement comes at the end of a tradition of teachers. Who again within the Hindu environment. Now, however, with the additional presence of Islam, are dissatisfied with the Hinduism that they've grown up in, that they've experienced. It's inadequate to satisfying any meaningful hope for escape from the difficult life that most everybody had. Even the rich didn't have a really good life, from our estimation. And the Sikhs, like Buddha and like the Jains, but much, much so, become strongly opposed to the caste system. And not only to the caste system, to the gender system. And so the Sikhs eliminate the distance between the castes and between men and women, and develop a tradition that there is nothing that a man can do that a woman couldn't do, wouldn't have the right to do. Now, as it develops, they don't respond to that quite the same way, because as we'll see, the Sikhs take on this identifiable characteristics that the women don't adopt. But much more than in any of the other groups of the era, they erase those differences. The other distinctive element of the Sikhs is that their teachings are created and promulgated, taught, and written down eventually as song. And unless you know a lot about the some of the early Protestant Christian groups that emerge, you wouldn't see the parallel. But the Sikhs are the what's not the Quakers, what's the Kentucky group? The Shakers, in terms of their services. But with them, it's even their classroom. Musical, dance, a song, so that their written material, which is it eventually emerged by this last Sikh, Guru Gobind Singh, who collected the writings of these previous gurus. This work is fundamentally a collection of songs. Then when he writes down his own stuff in a separate document, which isn't held quite as highly, quite as authoritatively, it's even more, almost totally these songs. He's the one who formalizes these distinctive features of the Sikhs, which of course you see only in the men. And that is unshorn, uncut hair, in the very loyal ones, that means all his hair, beard, mustache, as well as his hair, which they then control with the turban. The vast majority of it, which also then contains a comb in their hair. A bracelet around their wrist, symbolizing the eternal spiritual existence of which they believe this current person is a part. And because they are created with this dual concern and commitment, they have a sword, which of course, especially in modern setting, especially in the Western world, becomes very ornamental and therefore can be reduced in size considerably. And then they wear this knee-length undergarment, which again traditionally has very significantly limited styles to it. And obviously the moderns, especially the westernized, can take some liberties there. Some of the younger Sikhs, the men, have abandoned the turban and simply wear their hair in a top knot. Okay, here's their material. The major document is seen as their permanent guru. When Singh finally wrote it down, he made it into a living guru, even though it's a written document. Anybody recognize a counterpart in Christianity? And how many people refer to the Bible as the living word? This is the basic material of their philosophy, their worldview, their practice. And as I mentioned, instead of taking simply a verbal form like the surahs in the Quran, and certainly the narrative form that you find in much of the Bible, this is much more like Psalms or Proverbs even, where you have snippets. I suppose maybe a counterpart would even be Benjamin Franklin's almanac in terms of all the pithy sayings that go with it. This is the basis for their lifestyle. Much more than the Jains, much more even than Buddhism in its original form or in its purest form. They have temples which are centers of these very energetic worship experiences where they sing these songs. Here's their core values. Let me highlight that so you can see it a little easier. And this, of course, makes them extremely different from their Hindu origins, where the ultimate form of achieving this is the monk. The core values and honest living, a generous charity, and a constant awareness of the divine. Now, does anybody see a similarity here with something else we've looked at? It wasn't worded exactly the same way. The third item was clearly an element. The second one is one of the major elements of Islam. One of the 5 pillars of Islam is charity. One of the 5 pillars of Islam is the constant repeat profession of faith. The lifting up, making aware of Allah. And in fact, this secondary layer of literature by that last guru and subsequent ones clearly reflect Islamic influences. Now, with these core values, you see why the Sikhs had little trouble assimilating into America. I mean, what's more American than an honest job with an honest day's work? You haven't heard that before in American mythology? Now, I mentioned with the sword, this dual emphasis I thought it was right here. Here's where the word comes from, in case you're interested. And does anybody recognize this? Seek meaning disciple or learner. And what was the term in Islam?
What do?
No, the person in Islam is the surrendered person, the obedient person. And you can see in the material here, They are a much larger group, now considered fifth or sixth of the world religions in size. I think I sent you a piece about the 19th century, the 20th century, 1960 something Sikh who came to America and became the leader of the movement here in this country.
On page 2.
Let me look at that other piece too for a second. I sent you two things on the Sikhs. For those of you that want to I'll bring that up here in a minute and go back. Let me find that other one. Here's the one on the man who brought it to America and became a leader for its development here. And you wouldn't have any trouble seeing how people could be attracted to it. And then the one I really wanted. Let's see. Well, where did it go? Here we go. Seeks at a glance. Well, I must have closed it, so it's not showing up. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry about that. Well, I'm obviously I'll be look in your files and see, didn't I send you 6 documents?
About this,
Yeah.
6 pages?
No, honey, not to you, to them.
Yes, I have 6 documents in my email.
Yeah, there should be 3 on. Is the third one on the Seek simply a document?
There's one Speaks at a Glance, which is the one that you just went over, and then there's a 1-page. And at the top it says,
Okay. Okay. Should have been one similar. No, not that one. One is one was a page out of the Shir Guru Granth Shaviv. There should have been one that looks something like this. Okay. Now that it's open, maybe I can get to it. Well, I'll be, it's still not showing up. Try again. Okay, now does this one show? Sikhism EB. And this gives you some more details about the work, and it's just a single page about the literature. The first book, the 10th book, that kind of thing. And then I sent you the one that had a sample of their teachings. And their gives you an idea about how they wrote it, what some of the things were they said. Anybody recognize a counterpart to this one? The hunger of the hungry is not appeased even by piling up loads of worldly goods.
Sort the traders of heaven.
Yeah. And the recognition that all efforts of charity have limits. How easy it is to become a enabler, not a solver.
Each man had.
Okay. Well, I actually saved us some time this time, didn't I? I should have included with this group the modern Baha'i movement, which starts a couple hundred years after the Sikhs, which is openly a merging of Hinduism, Islam, even Christianity, Judaism to some degree, modern humanism to some degree. But has the same attitude toward other faiths that the Sikhs do. They're very ecumenical, very open. They're not aggressively evangelistic, but they are not at all sectarian in their view. They're perfectly happy for you to believe whatever it is you believe. They have no concern about restricting your belief system. And a part of that, of course, is the fact that they never were in a place where any sizable geography they controlled politically to be any different than we have to accept everybody because we're the minority. And if we try to be restrictive in any way, we certainly could be restrictive. The Baha'i faith takes that aggressive stance. There is good ideas, good values in all systems. Here are the ones we feel are primary, and they become like the Sikhs, take up the idea that there are no distinctions among people, period. Sex, age, origin, family. There is no basis for you to uphold one over the other. And therefore, there is no basis for you to hold one religion over the other. There is no ground to make one or the other exclusive. And in that respect, you see, they predate postmodernism, which takes the view that all values are social constructs. And therefore, you can't insist on one value being higher than another. most people in the world haven't found that satisfactory enough that even the United Nations can avoid articles of human rights, for instance. Well, you can't hardly have a set of articles of human rights worldwide if there's not some basis for you to claim that these human rights are worthy of being on our list and other human rights by various groups aren't worthy of being on our list. Or that these that are on our list have to be there in spite of the fact that your culture doesn't have them there. And so in some respects, Baha'i simply becomes a more modern version of Sikhism, arising out of the same geographical area, among the same peoples, but with a broader philosophical acceptance and inclusion. Simply because the Sikhs arose in an environment where they were still significantly isolated. England, of course, was already in India and Pakistan. The East India Company was there. The British government was there in various forms. Christian missionaries had begun to appear on the scene. But we weren't a major presence yet when Sikhism arises out of the milieu where there are both Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists, and particularly the Hindus and the Muslims are often in pretty open conflict with each other. And those of you who know your history know that when India was set free and Pakistan was created as an Islamic enclave, there was a great deal of violence that arose on both sides of the border, as those on the India side wanted to get rid of the Muslims, and those on the Pakistani side wanted to get rid of the Hindus, who've been living there for hundreds of years. So it's not difficult at all to see why there would be a movement within that culture to get past that kind of open conflict, and why it arises with the worldview that it does. That's inherent in its time and place. Unless you've got some question you want to pursue, I'll let you go. And next week, we'll do what I said we were going to do this week, last week. We'll go to Confucianism and Taoism the next week, which will be after Thanksgiving. The two religions that only become religious, but much like Buddhism, developed as a non-religion originally. And because of their setting in China, last a long time for among many people as not a religion at all, simply a way of life, a philosophy. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Platt. Have a good night.
You too. Jonathan is here, Kimberly is here, Angie is here, And Kevin is here. Well, they took Kevin's name off the list.
Well.
Or they confused the list. I'll have to check one or the other.
Did you ever get that with that one lady
I tried to,
that you've been sick?
yes. But then I got this new list and she wasn't on it, so I was trying to figure out which one she was. So I gotta go back to the old list. Angel was her name, I think.
I didn't think it was Angel, I thought it was in bed, didn't
It may be. You all have a good weekend
you?
and stay warm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are you gonna do for fun now, Angie, that baseball's over?
Yeah, how do I see you commercials anymore?
There's no fun anymore.
Well, that's crazy.
Well, I hope you guys, watched it, celebrated.
That's, my sound system is going haywire. Sorry about that. You may have heard that as much as we did.
Now,
What's
watch
that?
the Rockets. The
My-
sound was crazy. And now I have to watch the Rockets.
Yeah, now we're shifting onto rockets.
Okay.
All right,
It's not as exciting.
okay,
All right, y'all have a good night. See you next week.
you too.